handhelds, they have been around for as long as I can remember, starting with the Nintendo Game & Watch all the way to the PlayStation Vita. I've always had a soft spot for portable systems. I was a huge fan of the Tiger Electronics systems and Nintendo's own line of handheld consoles from the Game Boy Advance to the 3DS. However, if you look at my collection, you'll notice that something is missing. You see that little gap right there? That is where my Nintendo Game Boy would be, if I had one! That's right, as a child I never owned a Game Boy. In fact, until recently, I never even wanted one. Why? Because I had something better. And that was the Lynx Atari. Now I know what you're all thinking. How can I consider this brick of a handheld to be better than the Game Boy? Well, let's go back to the late 80s and maybe you'll understand. Christmas, 1989. Two handhelds had just been released. The Nintendo Game Boy and the Lynx Atari. To my parents, it was obvious which handheld would make the better Christmas present. Tech-wise, the Lynx was superior in every way. It was 16-bit, had 4,096 colors, and could even mimic 3D gaming. It was also the first system to shrink and expand sprites, something the Super Nintendo would end up doing later down the line with its Mode 7 graphics. On the surface, the Game Boy just couldn't compete. The green and black screen just looked so dull and lifeless compared to the beauty of the Lynx Atari. Of course, the system was not without its flaws. It took 6 AA batteries, the screen was difficult to see sometimes, and it was so big that one could hardly call it portable. I mean, look at the size of this thing! I can fit 2 whole Tiger Electronics on it. Or better yet, a DS, Game Boy SP, and even a Micro. I can fit 3 generations of Nintendo handhelds on one of the Ataris. That is a huge portable system. Though I should note in 1991, Atari released the Lynx 2, with better hardware, an extended battery life, and a smaller body. The games were great and had a lot of variety. They came on these small, thin cards that slid into the back of the system. Now I've always thought that was really cool. And one thing I remember was making sure that no one touched the exposed data panel on these cards, lest they destroy the game. I never found out if that was true or not, but I didn't want to take the chance. While many people like to think of the Lynx as a total failure, I disagree. While it is true that the system didn't sell as many units as the original Game Boy or Game Gear, I feel like it still was able to hold its own. And today it's still one of my favorite handheld systems of all time. So, to celebrate my enjoyment of the Lynx, I'd like to dedicate the next few episodes of WTF Games You Never Played to the Lynx Atari. Starting off with one of my personal favorites, Electrocop. Electrocop was released in 1989, making it one of the Lynx's launch titles. In this game you play as Electrocop, a cybernetic police officer who has to break into Megacorp to rescue the president's daughter. Now, just looking at the box's cover art, it's obvious to see that they were trying to portray a Judge Dredd type of character. The visor, the giant officer's badge, the sash, the shoulder pads, they all scream Judge Dredd. But when you start up the game, it's obvious that Epyx was blatantly ripping off RoboCop. I mean, look at him. Seriously, look at the guy. Can anyone at Epyx look me in the eye and say with a straight face that that is not RoboCop? Hell, even the name of the game is practically the same thing. RoboCop, Electrocop. Come on, Epyx, you're not fooling anyone. Luckily, the game itself has nothing to do with either one of those franchises. It's a corridor shooter that has you explore these electronic-themed mazes. Along the way, you'll encounter weapon upgrades and hackable computer terminals. Let's talk about the weapons first. You have the standard lawgiver, the laser pistol. Then you have the dual laser pistol, which shoots twice as many lasers. Then the tri-laser that shoots, that's right, you guessed it, 3 lasers. The next item on our list is the Predator's shoulder-mounted plasma gun. This weapon fires a constant laser blast for as long as you hold down the fire button. It's pretty useful for enemies that hover off the ground, but almost completely useless against walkers as the laser goes right over their head. Finally, you have the most powerful weapon of the game, the Emp Cannon. This sucker is the only weapon that has ammunition, but it can wipe the screen of all enemies and clear the floor of hazardous tiles. It is a very useful toy, but unfortunately it breaks very easily. Oh wait, didn't I tell you? Your weapons can break. Take too many hits and you'll be stuck defenseless. At that time you might as well reset or tiptoe your way through the corridors until you find a replacement. Now let's move on to computers. Computer consoles are the key to advancing through the game as they almost always lead to an exit, or at the very least, a weapons depot. Once you hack into a computer, you're given several options. Information gives you data on enemies, weapons, and programs. Programs let you access your hacker abilities. Games provide 3 mini-games for you to screw around with. Open doors opens the doors, while medpack and weapon repair are self-explanatory. Let's take a look at each one, starting with information. Here you have data on the large variety of enemies you'll encounter, the types of weapons you'll pick up, and what hacker programs you have available at your disposal. The program menu gives you access to your hacker utilities. Icebreaker, which we'll get to in a second, and Stasis, which freezes all the enemies in the area for a specific amount of time. When you choose the open door option, you'll see a 4-digit code is required. Do you remember the Icebreaker program? That's where it comes in handy. You see, unless you remember the code from a previous run-through, you'll spend an eternity trying to figure out the password on your own. Icebreaker does all the dirty work for you. Luckily, you have the ability to play those mini-games to help you pass the time. If ripping off movies wasn't bad enough, the mini-games are straight rip-offs of classic arcade games. We have Meteor, which is obviously asteroids, we have Letter Puzzle, and then we have Outbreak, which is just Breakout with the words reversed. Yeah, these are just lazy copycats of classic arcade games. They don't do anything but help you waste time as the Icebreaker works its magic. What I find hilarious is the games go as far as insulting you if you complete them. Every time you beat one of the mini-games, you get the same message. You cheeky bastards. With all that under our belt, all that is left to do is get to the 5th floor and save the President's daughter. At first, it seems simple enough. As long as you hold down the fire button, you'll be able to escape most rooms unscathed. However, there are times when you find yourself being hit from all sides without any way to escape. Furthermore, there are several rooms that are set up just to screw with you. You see this corridor full of lasers? You would think that this would be guarding somewhere important, but it doesn't. It's just a dead end. And check out this hallway. Keep going forward and you just end up in a room with explosive tiles covering the entirety of the floor. What a tease! Now you would think making it up 5 floors would be a cakewalk, but that is where you're wrong. You see, the first 4 floors go in consecutive order, but once you leave level 4, you end up on level 7. If you're not careful, it sends you back to level 3. In fact, you have to go to level 12 before you can even start heading down to level 5. All of this could be avoided if we had a proper map, but because we don't have one, you just spend a majority of your time wandering around like a rat in the maze. Now my final complaint stems from the fact that the window is just too damn small. You are unable to see very far. It ends up resulting in the player running face first into enemies that are off screen. If the camera was zoomed out a bit more, it would be more tolerable, but the way it is now, you're forced to take baby steps as you wander through the facility. Now with all that said, I cannot say that I dislike the game. I actually enjoy it quite a bit. The game is designed to be beaten in under an hour, and after a few playthroughs you'll be able to memorize which doors lead where and the fastest route to get to your destination. Furthermore, the computer passwords never change, so if you write them down you'll be able to make it through the game that much faster. Like other games during its time, Electrocop is all about memorization. Despite some hit detection issues, I find the game is rather fair, and once you figure out the proper path, you'll be able to speed through the game in under half an hour. The explosions are satisfying and the enemies unique. I enjoy the challenge the game presents, and while it's frustrating sometimes, I never rage quit. It's one of those games that is short enough where you want to beat it in a single go, but hard enough to put up a good challenge. So there you have it, Electrocop for the Lynx Atari. Please tune in next time when we go through some more games for this beast of a handheld. And I'll see you then.